And now moving on and shifting our focus to what is happening between US and Iran. We are learning that US President Donald Trump has said that US is very close to a deal with Iran to end the ongoing conflict, further claiming that Tehran has agreed to hand over the stockpile of the enriched uranium. This is quite important because speaking with the reporters at the White House, Donald Trump has said, and I quote, "We're very close to making a deal with Iran. We had to make sure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon." They've totally agreed to that. They've agreed to almost everything. So maybe if they can get to the table, there is a difference. So this is what he said, referring to the uranium stockpile and saying that they've agreed to give us back the nuclear dust, the terms that he has used for enriched uranium that US says could be used to build nuclear weapons. However, he did not provide details of the arrangement. The issue of uranium enrichment remains a key sticking point between the two countries. The United States has reportedly pushed for a 20-year suspension of the Iran's enrichment program, with Tehran that has proposed a shorter 5-year pause, an offer that US has completely rejected. So it remains to be seen whether the two parties will come on the table for the second round of talks in the next few days. But at this point in time, US President Donald Trump has said that US and Iran are very close to a deal to end the ongoing conflict, further claiming that Tehran has agreed to hand over the stockpile of the enriched uranium. Listen in.
The big thing we have to do is we have to make sure that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon, because if they do, you want to talk about problems, you'd have problems. So very important is that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon, and they've agreed to that. Iran's agreed to that, and they've agreed to it very powerfully. They've agreed to give us back the nuclear dust that's way underground because of the attack we made with the B-2 bombers. So we have a lot of agreement with Iran, and I think something's going to happen very positive.
Let me go across to my colleague Rishabh, who's been tracking all the details. Good morning, Rishabh. This is very important what Donald Trump has said, that Iran has agreed to hand over the stockpile of the enriched uranium, because this was a key sticking point as far as the first round of talks are concerned. And just before the ceasefire deadline is to approach, he said that Iran has agreed to that major demand. How crucial is this?
Well, if true, this is very crucial. If true, and Iran is ready to give what we are given to understand, about 450 kilograms of enriched uranium to the United States, then there is no basis of the war. The war was, the invasion, the war happened because US and Israel believe that Iran is 2 weeks, just 2 weeks away from having a nuclear weapon. But now, if Donald Trump is to be believed, and we live in an era where we have to use this phrase that if the US president is to be believed, Iran is ready to give the nuclear dust, quote unquote, which means enriched uranium to the United States, which makes it very clear that then there is no basis of war and the ceasefire will continue, or for that matter, the war will end and there will be better relationship between Iran and the United States. Remains to be seen if that happens, because we haven't heard anything of this sort from Tehran or any Tehran affiliated person per se who says that they are ready to give up on their nuclear aspiration now.
Absolutely, because the issue of uranium enrichment remains a key sticking point. US has reportedly pushed for 20-year suspension of the program, while Iran has proposed a shorter 5-year pause, and that remains a sticking point. As you rightly mentioned, Rishabh, a denial has come in from Iran. We're learning that Iran has rejected Trump's nuclear claim, denied any uranium transfer, saying that no talks on handover at all, calling a Donald Trump claim a complete lie. Iran has said that no major progress in talks has taken place in the last few days. Iran has, most importantly, directly denied Donald Trump's claim that it has agreed to hand over enriched uranium, with a source close to the parliament. Speaker has said that no form of nuclear material transfer to America has been negotiated between two parties. Let me go across to my colleague Mayank on that. Mayank, as far as the uranium enrichment is concerned, that remains a key sticking point. Donald Trump saying that Iran has agreed to hand over the stockpile, but Iran once again rejecting that claim, calling what Donald Trump has said a complete lie.
So let me remind our viewers, and for better understanding of them, let me remind and bring out 2015 JCOP, Joint Comprehensive Plan, which was between the Permanent Five, which is UN permanent 5 countries, and they are nuclear-enabled countries. Actually, in that case also, it was one of the agreements was and sort of a proposal was given by Russia that they were ready to take away all enriched uranium and they can store that. They have capability of that. But in this case now, as you are saying, and the information is coming out that Iran is ready to hand over the stockpile. That is interesting to wait and watch, because unless there's an official thing coming out, we need to wait and watch. Nuclear is the aspect which has become the hinge point now, the main point on which the entire talk is based currently. During the first talk only, even right after the talk, it was Vice President who made a statement, and the essence of it was hinging on nuclear aspect only. So what we see, it has become the core point of discussion on ceasefire, which is about to end on 22nd, and we have to wait and watch to which side these things rest. That becomes very important. Because from Iran side, if we decipher whatever is happening, they won't be giving the bargaining chip. Or rather, the kind of agreement is such high and agreeable to both sides, or it's so attractive that Iran agrees to do so. We have to wait and watch, because there's a lot of things which have to happen on ground. Although, and from words, let us wait, because both sides have been making projections and have been posturing. But then on ground, lately we have found practically they have done something different. And that also includes that both sides were initially saying that they were not ready, but they ultimately sat down and spoke to each other. So that becomes interesting, and we need to wait and watch. But then there is history in JCPOA, in which Iran was supposed to hand over its stockpile to one country which can store that stockpile, because they require special capability and technology also to store that stockpile. And enrichment is something on which the entire talk is still going ahead.
Absolutely, because at this point in time, there are two friction points. One is the Strait of Hormuz. Another one, as you also rightly mentioned, is the stockpile of other enriched uranium. So it remains to be seen whether in coming days, both the parties will come to the table for the second round of talks. Stay on with us. I'll come back to you once again. We have another breaking update coming in. Let's tell you more about what is happening between US and Iran as far as the West Asia war is concerned, because another statement has come in from Donald Trump. He has repeated that Iran wants to make a deal, claiming that US has a very good relationship and ties with Iran. And this is what Donald Trump has said exactly. He said, and I quote, Iran wants to make a deal and we're dealing very nicely with them. We've got to have no nuclear weapons. That's a very big factor, and they're willing to do things today that they were not willing to do 2 months ago. By that, he is alluding to the nuclear enrichment. We have a very good relationship with Iran right now, as hard as it is to believe, and I think it's a combination of the 4 weeks of bombing, a very powerful blockade. He's talking about the naval blockade that is there in the Strait of Hormuz. We have another breaking update coming in as far as Donald Trump is also concerned. But first up, listen in to what he said.
Iran wants to make a deal, and we're dealing very nicely with them. We've got to have no nuclear weapons. If we do, that's a big factor. And they're willing to do things today that they weren't willing to do 2 months ago.
Let me go across to my colleague Rishabh, who's been tracking all the details. Rishabh, do tell us about what is happening as far as Iran and US is concerned, because there is naval blockade in place. Donald Trump is saying that there is going to be a deal soon. The ceasefire deadline is going to expire on April 22nd. So what is happening as far as the two countries are concerned?
See, one thing is very clear, the ceasefire will definitely be extended. Both the sides do understand that direct conflict is not something that is in their favor. US do understand that they have lost assets that they haven't done in last 2 to 3 decades in these 40 days. Iran do understand that continuous bombing has practically crumbled their infrastructure, and any more bombing might be difficult for the regime to sustain. So both the sides do understand that while they do not know the firepower of each other, they should stop here, given the benefit of doubt that both of them have in their mind. The fog of war has left both of them thinking that whether they want to continue this conflict, military conflict, or not. Asim Munir was in Tehran. What we're given to understand that he has gone there with the final proposal of United States, and he might also travel to United States in this week itself, by the weekend. And then once things are, what went wrong last time? Last time, the complications, the differences were not discussed beforehand. The solutions were not looked for beforehand, before JD Vance and Arakchi sat down on the table. When these leaders, the leaders of this stature, sit on the table to discuss a ceasefire, major differences should have been already dealt with. That did not happen. So this time around, they have taken a different approach. What we are given to understand that Asim Munir, the CDF, the Chief of Defense Forces of Pakistan, is traveling to Iran and Washington, passing on the notes from each other and trying to have a middle ground before the second round of talks happen. What we're given to understand that by end of this week or early next week, we will hear what the next date would be for both the sides to come down to Islamabad, or for that matter Doha or Istanbul, wherever they're comfortable, and sit down and discuss. US says that Pakistan is the only mediator. Iran hasn't said anything of that sort.
Absolutely. It remains to be seen how that pans out in the coming days. But for now, we can see that the attacks and the counterattacks between the two countries have eased down in the last few days, ever since the ceasefire plan was put forth by both the countries. We have another breaking update coming in as